double shot of modern baseball here on Under the Stars, Apartment and Your Graduation, two of my personal favorite by them. My name is DJ Sloan, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts. There's a little shuffle.
I'm running over. Hi, I'm DJ Gizmo.
And I'm DJ Wobble.
Whoop, 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 for sure. And if some of you are real dedicated, long-time listeners, you'll remember that last semester we had our good friend DJ June, a.k.a. Sam, back with us. And with her, an even more special guest, sorry DJ June, Dr. Sbriglia, who is from Misconstruity. We premiered your song Carnival. And I'm going to hand it over to Lauren, who's going to introduce you and have some questions for you.
So Ashlyn kind of started this all off. Thank you so much, Russ, a.k.a. Dr. Sbriglia. Alter egos, I feel like, on the FM airwaves. It is wonderful to have you here. We have so many new songs to play tonight from Misconstruity. But firstly, on this warmer Tuesday evening, how are you?
I'm good. I mean, it is very warm, but I have to say, it's so windy that on the walk over here, it didn't feel all that different from the last time I was here, which was an autumnal October night.
I feel like we had a later fall. Like, it was like a later summer that went into like that October month, and then winter was very, very cold and ugly until like a week ago, and now it's like super warm.
All of a sudden it's 80, yeah.
I know. I love that first. So obviously we are here talking about and playing your new songs with Misconstruity, the Presentiment and the Verification, of course, and then we have Let Them Rot, Antigone, I cannot speak as I'm looking at this one. Antigone between, why can't I pull it up? Between the two deaths. There we go. I always used to say Antigone, so if you know how my pronunciation is, there you go.
No, that was good. You got it right.
So tell me, after releasing that first song of Carnival, which we did play on here, what was kind of your thought process with following it up? Did you feel like there was any pressure to constantly change your sound to fit more molds? Or do you think with Carnival you really found and locked in on a certain style of music?
Well, Carnival is in some ways the most straightforward poppiest song on the record because it has it does have some of the qualities of some of the other more proggy songs on the record, but it has a pretty standard, like, it's verse chorus. I think it's the only song with like an actual guitar solo on it. There's some like solo moments, but like it has like a pop song big guitar solo. And so we followed it up with, in January, I think it was over the break, actually, we released Let Them Rot, Antigone Between the Two Deaths. And that song, I mean, Carnival, we did get a good reception from that, but the Let Them Rot did even better because it has a guest spoken word part by my friend and philosopher Slavoj Žižek. And so that got us, I mean, we're still a very small band, so these are not numbers that like big bands would care about. But I think if you like our
the love
YouTube,
is real.
I know everything is like in the hundreds, and then that song went out, and it's I think almost up to like 2,000.
There we go.
But that I mean, I think we're gonna play it. That's more grandiose than Carnival.
So that, again, you're talking about that philosopher, which. Certainly, I am a big philosophy, theology kind of nerd, and I kind of nerd out on that stuff, even though I'm not very good at it. But I think it's so cool to have that sort of influence and incorporation between your piece. Just honestly, just tell me about the process of what was the reason for utilizing that, for bringing that aspect that you don't really hear or see a lot in music into your song.
Yeah, so the album that all of these sort of early singles are from, and I don't have a precise date yet, but I can tell you that it will be out in the summer, hopefully some point in July. But the album is called Critique of Pure Desire, and it's 10 songs, and each song, like Carnival, is a sort of retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Cask of Amontillado.
Yeah.
And Let Them Rot is an interpretation of Sophocles' play Antigone, and Presentiment and Verification, which is the new single which just dropped today, and this is going to be the live debut of it. That's about a Melville novel titled Pierre or the Ambiguities. So Slavoj Žižek, he's written essays, probably a book's worth of material on the play Antigone. He's also published his own rewrite of the play Antigone that he published it, and then it's been staged. I think it might even be turned into an opera. So so he was the obvious choice to ask. We had this, you'll hear the song, there's this big sort of interstitial in it, about a minute long, and I was like, it came to me like, oh, I should ask
Was
Slavoj.
it like a light bulb kind of thing?
Yeah, really.
I love that.
I had no vocal part for it. I didn't know what to do there, and I don't know. It's kind of like a Pink Floyd kind of talking piece, but I mean, when you hear his voice is also very distinct. So I just heard it in my head, and thankfully he agreed to do it. And then it all came together, and it turned out we were thrilled with how it turned out.
That's beautiful. I was going to ask what kind of influences were involved in the creation of that as well as a follow-up, but I think it's really cool how you say Pink Floyd, because that's Dark Side of the Moon, that kind of vibe.
Totally one of those like spoken word, like interstitials on Dark Side was what I was thinking of.
100%. So we're about to play, firstly, we're going to play Let Them Rot and Antigone Between Two Deaths firstly. Is there any kind of, maybe not picture, visualization, visualization, any last minute kind of thoughts you want to leave the listener with before we play this song firstly? I'll ask you again for the next song, but firstly with this one.
Yeah, I mean, the song, I mean, most of the songs are narrative based, although they're a little bit abstract. So I don't want to necessarily like give the full narrative, but just those of you who have read it or have seen it performed, Antigone is condemned to be buried alive because she has disobeyed her uncle's decree of not burying any traitors, and her two brothers get into a fight over who is going to rule the land, and so Antigone disobeys her uncle and buries her brother Polynices, and so the song basically takes that and as its starting point, and at one point Antigone says, if it were anyone else, if it was a husband who was killed, I could get a new, or a child, I could get a new husband, I could make a new child, but because I only have this one brother, she's willing to sacrifice herself for that like ethical act. So that's sort of like the philosophical background of it.
That gives songs such a deeper meaning and more resonation. I love that. So firstly, within this whole Misconstruity little presentation tonight we have for you on Under the Stars, we will be playing Let Them Rot, Antigone Between the Two Deaths by Misconstruity. Take it away.
Antigone's desire is determined precisely as a pure desire, a desire purified of all pathological content. By refusing to give way as to her desire, she steps into the uncanny zone between the two deaths, becoming in her persistence in the death drive a frighteningly ruthless figure, one who is exempted from the circle of everyday feelings and considerations, passions and fears. The suicidal eclat of her sublime beauty in the proximity of the little thing towards which she throws herself necessarily evokes in us, pathetic, everyday, compassionate creatures, the question, que voit? What does she really want? A question which precludes any identification with her. For Antigone's act lies beyond any figure of the big other. It is an act of abyssal freedom and, as such, political.
Let Them Rot, Antigone Between the Two Deaths by Misconstruity here on Under the Stars, your home for all things emo, pop, punk, as well as some special features. We like to have fun around here, and today we have Russ from Misconstruity live on air. We're going to be debuting his new song as well, the Presentiment and the Verification, in due time as well, but we played that first song for you folks, and I was getting two very distinct sounds from that one. Obviously, I told you about Pink Floyd, very great gig in the Great Gig in the Sky landscape. Yep. I feel like I'm floating in that little philosophical part.
Yep.
But also, I'm a younger emo, I guess. So this kind of reminds me of A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, Build God, Then We'll Talk by Panic at the Disco.
Oh, I can see that.
Kind of like theatrical, like melodrama. I really, really, really love that vibe. So tell me, we talked about this in the last time you were here. Tell me about the musical composition of that one. What was the process of creating that sound?
I had the descending guitar riff for the verse. That was the first thing I had.
Yes.
And it's super, like, it's heavier than anything Radiohead does, but in it, like, isolated and playing it on an acoustic, because I usually write stuff on acoustic guitar. Maybe half and half, but anyway, it sounded very Radiohead to me, and I liked the progression, and it just had this, like, really sort of beautiful, and, like, a lot of the stuff I write, like, melancholic, descending progression, and then so I came up with that. And then I had also the little, like, Spanish sort of sounding riff during the chorus. And then I was like, what do I do with this? And I figured out what the chords were for the arpeggiated part. And I was like, does this sound any good? And that's where, like, it comes out, like, really, like, it comes out of the gate fast with that, like, aggressive kind of, like, you know, like, very classic sort of, like, post-hardcore thing.
Yes.
And then the middle part, so a lot of the song, even though there's many parts, a lot of the song is actually, like, the same chords.
Yeah.
That whole build-up is the same chord progression. Just so it's like I play it mid, then the heavier parts are lower, and then that, like, big crescendo build-up part it's basically the same thing, just arpeggiated higher. But but then the most fun was building stuff around it. So during that long build-up section, there's used a bunch of cool pedals to like Mellotron pedals sort of like synth violin, and then Rob, the other member of Misconstruity, hi Rob, Rob's in San Francisco. So Rob wrote this really sort of what's the word I'm looking for, like cinematic part on the Moog, and so that was the last thing we recorded. Like we basically wrote everything, and then he wrote some Moog synthesizer for some of the stuff, and it makes it sound like really almost like a Stanley Kubrick film at one point. So that's it. If it's not my favorite song on the record, it's definitely vying for a favorite song.
You mentioned Radiohead, and I think it's giving also exit music for a film.
Yeah,
that kind of cinematic.
For sure.
I guess the conclusion,
Definitely.
composure of it. I love talking music theory. It's one of my favorite. I'm not very good at analyzing it, but when someone talks to me about it, I'm like, that's genius. I love those little compositions and stuff like that. So
exit music, that's such a great and Paranoid. The middle part, I kind of had like the sort of descending part of Paranoid Android, but definitely exit music for a film is somewhere in there. Yeah, that's great.
I love that. So this is kind of a broad question, but I think expanding out to the whole album now, do you think that any theoretical components really, maybe not really you honed in on with this album, but are there any certain like time signatures or any distortion or anything like messing around with notes that you think you really love doing that you kind of put into the album, or is it like an eclectic mix of everything?
It's pretty eclectic, but I think I like albums where the band sort of they branch out and they do different things, and so this one kind of I think it does that, but at the same time I think it's also the most sort of concentrated album that we've done. So I mean, a lot of the songs like Carnival, and then also Let Them Rot. I mean, most explicitly in Let Them Rot, and then even in Presentiment and Verification, like there's a lot of it is informed by philosophy and psychoanalysis. So like Death Drive is a major recurring theme, but something that I took from bands like Sunny Day Real Estate and the Mars Volta, a huge influence, the Queens of the Stone Age, is to play around with the time signatures. So so you see that a little bit of that in Let Them Rot. You'll see that in Presentiment and Verification. The whole thing is in 3/4, I think. But then like the last song we're going to release as a single before the album comes out in the summer, I think it has like 8 different time signatures in it.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
Yeah. But it has to be sort of organic, because when you kind of just throw it in, like I can only listen to, I do like math rock, but I can only listen to a certain amount of it, because after a while it's like, it can seem forced. And so I'm always sort of cognizant of trying not to make it, just everything seems like a disparate part and you just switch there. So whenever it can, like a time signature change can happen organically.
Yes, naturally.
Is like really, I like that. So I try to aim for that sometimes.
I love that. That makes my theory heart very happy. So we will be debuting the Presentiment and the Verification by Misconstruity, which is so exciting to debut live here on Under the Stars. Before we send it to the musical break, any kind of like what I mentioned earlier, anything you want the listeners to really think about? I know you said you like keeping things a little more abstract, but any last words, I guess, before the song plays?
Yeah, unless there are people out there might be. I just taught it last week in my Dark Romanticism grad class, so there may be some people who've actually read this Melville novel that the song is loosely based on. It's based on the novel Melville wrote and published after Moby Dick, called Pierre or the Ambiguities, and it is the craziest novel I've ever read, and so I guess I'll just leave it. I mean, but I also kind of want to leave it open to the listener's interpretation as to where they take it. But it definitely has some. If you've read the novel, it's heavily grounded in the novel while still kind of trying to keep it abstract. But this song, more than Let Them Rot and Carnival, this song is I finally finished it after like having it around for 20 something years.
There's a demo that lingered around.
I have a version that we played missing some of the parts on a radio show in 2000 or 2001. So this actually is the most sort of like classic, I guess, emo post-hardcore song that we have on the record.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this. Folks, debuting here on Under the Stars by Misconstruity, the Presentiment and the Verification. Check it out, and let's get locked in now. Presentiment and Verification by Misconstruity here on Under the Stars, your home for all things emo and pop punk. And today with our very special guest, Russ from Misconstruity, as we debut that song. So fun. And a couple of things. Firstly, how does it feel just to hear your own songs on the airwaves? Under the Stars specifically, not to toot our own horn, but Under the Stars specifically.
No, I mean I'm very grateful and thankful that you guys had me on. I mean not only just once but twice, and it does hit differently when you hear it being broadcast. Like I whenever you hear it, it's like the compression when if you hear yourself on the radio, it sounds different. It sounds more professional. So no, this is a blast. I love it.
I love that. It makes my heart very happy as well. So a couple aspects we talked about earlier were the time signatures, which I think is really cool because I was a choir kid and theater kid in middle school, high school. So when my director would always like compose or conduct pieces, I'd always like try to mime it and see how to conduct it. I was never really good at it, but I just noticed myself while I was listening to it, like trying to like find it out with the hand gestures and stuff. So I thought that little personal anecdote was just really cool, just because, as you said, it's complex, and I think if you can agree, or if this is what you think within the whole album as a whole, that's kind of a small reflection of this album. That's very complex. There's a lot going on, both introspectively, but also like within the interpretations within the world and kind of stuff like that. Because it's just what you've talked about with your band is that how long you guys have been going on for, and the stuff you have created, and how that I think it was that one you were saying that's been in the collection for 20-ish years now. There's just a lot of personal, I'm trying to think of the better word, like personal kind of relationships within the song, and in the work that you're releasing. So just tell me about kind of, do you think what you're experiencing personally reflects within your songs, within like your, maybe this is getting a little like psychiatric kind of vibe like that, but do you think that you like to go for the complexities? You like to kind of just never really surprise yourself, do you know what I mean? Just really never know what you're gonna do next. Is that how you see yourself?
Yeah, I try not to make things complex for complexity's sake, but as kind of a challenge to myself. And I think that this, more than this album, and this song is a good example of it, more than anything else, I try to sort of push myself and to push the music that we put out. So I was actually wrong. The song, so everything's in 3/4, except then the chorus switches to 4/4.
I noticed the chorus. I was like, wait a minute.
And that's also like, you can tell kind of that I listen to some contemporary music, but not a lot. But this song, like, it has a very sort of like mid to late 90s feel in a way, because it has the like soft verse, and then that was a huge thing, like soft verse, like loud crunchy chorus. But the verses and the chorus, I could have played I did play, those are the old parts, but there's that sort of bridge where it turns into kind of a waltz, and there's the
very
weird
much
chords
like flowy.
That I probably couldn't even have played on guitar when we first wrote the song. And so that was like, when I revisited, I was like, what can I do, or what can we do to make this song? Because there's also Moog during that section as well that Rob added. But I was like, what can we do to keep the spirit of the song, but also make it reflect how much we've grown as musicians and as songwriters. And I think that this one, we had a debate about which one to release as the third single, and I think this song really sort of encapsulates a lot of the whole album because of the range of it. That it's got the quiet parts, it has the heavier parts, it has the time signature changes. We were talking while we were playing that it's got some cool percussion stuff. Like I did a guiro on it, and there's tambourine. So yeah, I like the layers of depth and sort of complexity that we were able to pull off. I hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Depth, complexity, and kind of release date and timing, things like that. I want to talk a little bit about that. What are some of the themes / purposes between your deliberate placement and releasing of singles? Do you have like a set story you're trying to tell within the singles leading up to the album? Is it just your favorite tracks from the album? Like, what is your how do you plan for releasing the singles of the album?
Yeah, well, part of it is just it's a big project.
Yeah.
And so the person who engineered, recorded, and mixed the album, we still have 2 songs left to mix. It's halfway mastered, and I brought some advanced master copies here to share. But it's really because it's we've been doing it and recorded it piecemeal. Like I recorded the drums for it over 2 years ago now. So just like during a spring break or during Christmas break or during the summer. And so the release of the singles, they've been every 3 months. So Carnival was October. Then Let Them Rot was January. And then this. And so the idea now is that we'll release one more about a week or two before the album comes out. So that's why we're aiming for July. But I think it's some mix of like Carnival, because it was the most sort of like single-esque.
Yeah.
And when I think I talked about this last time, like I specifically tried to put, big sort of radio hooks on that one.
Yeah, it's with like any band, when they're releasing stuff like a first single, there's that signature radio kind of sound.
Exactly. And then Let Them Rot was okay. I mean, I do think it's a good song, and we're proud of it. But just the fact of having Zizek's involvement in it was like, okay, this will help to generate interest and hype about the record. And then this one, I think it demonstrates, like I was saying, the sort of it kind of encapsulates a lot of the record, and it also this one is kind of weird. It's like verse, bridge, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus. It's not a traditional structure, but we thought that it would be cool and also kind of a throwback to some of the older Misconstruity stuff. But then the last single that we're gonna release over the summer, just before the record comes out, is probably the craziest song on the. That's the one that has like all like this like 6 or 7 time signature changes, and that one is basically like a mini. Like that one is literally like encapsulates the record. And you mentioned Pink Floyd earlier when I made that Pink Floyd reference. That song actually has a callback to one of the other songs, kind of like the moment in Time on Dark Side when it goes back to Breathe.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
I wanted to do that forever, and we finally I think pulled it off on that song. But
beautiful.
So kind of a mix of like what sounds like most like a single, and what are the tracks that we feel are the strongest and like the most.
Very valid. As we kind of wrap this little special up, again, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me.
This is incredible, so special, and so intimate. We love it here. What do you want people to take away from you and the purpose, message, and intent that is Misconstruity?
Boy, that's a tough question.
I know. I gotta end it on a tough one. I gotta say.
Well, I think more than anything, the fact that that Rob and I are still making music, that it wasn't like we hadn't put out an album in a long time, and you write stuff but oftentimes you don't feel compelled to really do anything with it, or you're okay to, you're content with sitting on it for a while. And there was something, I don't know if it's just, things going on, either consciously or unconsciously in my life or our collective lives, but it just felt like this needed to get done and needed to get out. So once it's out there, I just if people enjoy it or appreciate it, that'll be its own reward, because the reward for us is sort of making it, and then if people like it and are interested in it, that's an added bonus. So I really hope that people do like it
just as much as it is for the people who are listening. It's just as important for you two who are creating this music, and it's so special to be able to debut this stuff on the FM airwaves here on Other Stars. So Dr. Sbriglia, Russ, thank you so much for your time. This has been so much fun.
Thanks to you, Lauren, and thanks to everyone else.
Yay! We're going to turn things back to Under the Stars' programming. We got
Alkaline Trio.
We have some Alkaline. I was going to say Stupid Kid by Alkaline Trio. Let's go. Here we go. Under the Stars. You're locked in.